and then that goes up on the YouTube channel for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you like it, Peter. I'd love to say that it's my new chateau in France, but Geoffrey already owns it, sadly. I'll see if I can't make him an offer for it. Geoffrey, thanks so much for coming today. This is great.
Yes, so Geoffrey, I think we have 24 people or 30 people, but we normally get about 2/3. So we'll probably have about 18 to 20 people on today. Okay.
And Geoffrey, to make it clear, Lou and Robert are from Wine Exchange, so they are your importer in Singapore.
Geoffrey, I thought what might be quite useful is to work off your terroir image on the site. So if that's okay with you, I'm going to open that up and I'll pin you as the main box so people can see you.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. So you want we can begin?
Just 3 minutes to go.
Okay.
Not yet.
How long is it going to last? Approximately.
About half an hour,
usually.
Half an hour to 45
hour?
minutes. Depends on how many questions you get.
Okay.
We've got a good lineup of wines here, so and probably Geoffrey will want to talk about the various terroirs. So I expect it'll be closer to 45 minutes than 30 minutes, but maximum normally 45.
Okay, great.
So perfect. You just choose the map that I wanted to show.
Oh, great. In a usually failed attempt at sounding like I know what I'm doing, I try to do some homework before these things start. So for me, this is fantastic because it just gives me a perspective, which is I so often lack when you're looking at a domain or a plot and not really seeing what's going on. It's this is much easier.
I'll tell you what, Rob, you missed a really scorcher today. It was
Really
brutally hot. Oh.
It's weather's incredible here. I've never known it to be so calm and cool. So in the mornings it's 23 degrees, and now it's the heat, the most hot of the heat, the warmest of the day, and it's only about 36. So yeah, that's what.
It was a stinker here today.
Okay, we're on.
Okay.
7 o'clock. So Geoffrey, thank you so much for joining us today and for helping sponsor the wines. This is definitely a terrific way for us in the new world that we live in to get as many wines in front of as many clients as we can. And particularly when it comes to Burgundy, because it's just so incredibly complex, to be able to sit down with you and taste the large proportion of your bones all in one go from 2019 is terrific. By some sheer force of circumstance, I actually got the lineup right as well this time, because we're going to be looking obviously at the Blanc to start, but building our way up to what certainly people like Berghound deem to be one of the most important wineries, the Marconnets, and then finishing with the Teurons, which so happens in 2019 is getting higher ratings than everything else. My only sales spiel to the database is to let you all know that all the reds are at $79 today, and all the available wine that's left, we've already eaten up 2/3 of our shipments from Geoffrey, is available online as well in that email that I sent to everybody. So let me hand over to Geoffrey from here. Oh, just one more thing I just wanted to say for everybody. It seems to me, reading back in the history of Morot, there were two really important time periods where Morot really started to elevate in status. The first was, Geoffrey, probably when your great aunt took over and closed the negociant business and focused just on the wineries. And then when you took over in 2000, and led the wineries into certified organics, and finally achieved that in 2015. So it's a very exciting time for the winery and a really interesting opportunity for us to see your organic wines now 4 years post-certification. So let's hand over to you from here.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps I can, you explained already a little bit the history of the winery first. Yeah, as you said, it's a family-owned winery, and we began in 1820 as for negociant business, and we bought our vineyards in 1890. Also, at this time, we bought the castle that you can see on the bottom. And so we bought 7 hectares of vineyards, only first cru in Beaune, and 1 Savigny Beaune called La Bataillère. My aunt, she stopped the negociant business in 1984 to focus on our own vineyards. And me, when I come in 2000, also I focus on the vineyards. And after 5, 6, 7 years, I saw that it was better to change to organic farming. And I began to do some trials in 2007 in 1 vineyard, 2008 2 vineyards, and then 2009 already was almost organic, except 1 vineyard, because it was quite difficult to go to this vineyard. And in 2015, as you said, everything is organic certified. We have mostly old vines who produce grapes with low yields, also due to organic farming. We have low yields and quite a concentration in the grapes that make wine with quite a good concentration and good fruit. We have 7 hectares on Beaune, 7 first cru, from the north to the south that you can see on the map. You are first close to the highway who on the north, it's a highway from Beaune to Paris. So you have Beaune Marconnets completely on the top. We have just 1 vineyard village wine, but just a little bit, very small, Beaune Dessus des Marconnets. You see it's completely on the top of the hill, and that's why it's no more first cru. We go back to village appellation.
That's going to be our wine number 5 today, guys, coming from Marconnets. Sorry, Jeffrey.
No problem. Then we have Beaune Sans Vigne, who is more on the bottom of the slope. Yes, here. And after that, we have Bressandes, more south. Toussaint, just below the Bressandes. Greves, and then more south, Teurons, then Aigrots. And I have a little bit also of Pommard on Pommard village. Yeah.
I think what's really cool about this picture, Jeffrey, I'm never going to get your name right, so I'm just going to call you Jeffrey. I hope that's okay.
No problem.
my French accent's worse than my Italian. I'm a constant embarrassment. I think what's really cool about this picture is seeing the elevation and the impact of the elevation on the actual vines. It's a really great opportunity to see that. Am I correct in understanding that on the flatter area of this topography, you're getting more of the clay, and then the higher up is silt and sandy? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. On bottom, you will find more clay and silt, and then you go on limestone. More you go up on it, you have more limestone. Yeah. So it means that the roots have to go deeper, mostly on organic farming, because we don't work the soil. We don't spray any herbicide. Oh. So the roots have to go deeper to find the water. So you have more. So that helps to have more concentrated grapes, and more and the wine also will have more complexity.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we can start with the Aigrots Blanc 19 Premier Cru. That's jar number 1, everybody, and that's coming from this part of town. I notice in the tasting note, Jeffrey, that it's 10,000 vines to a hectare, which is quite intensive farming. In Australia, by comparison, it's a much lower ratio, 5,000-6,000 vines, unless they're specifically taking a Burgundian approach to the production of the grapes.
Yeah, just to say that, in fact, in Burgundy, we have it's an appellation system, so it means that there is a regulation, and we are not allowed to produce more quantity. We are just there is a maximum of quantity that we can produce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it means that 10,000 vine per hectare. It means 5-6 grapes per vine, just to give you an idea. So you have one bud who will produce one branch, and on this branch there must be one grape. Yeah. And so it helps to concentrate the
flavor of the wine.
Yes. Yeah. Because one vine will produce only for 5-6 grapes.
Yeah.
And when you are 4,000 vine per hectare, each vine will produce 12 or 15 grapes. Yeah. But the problem, no, it's not a problem, but the fact it costs more. Because it costs more because you have to work more by hand, or by the tractor, are more expensive. And of course, when you work on 10,000 vines instead of 4,000.
Right. So the just doing some research on the people who have tasted this wine already, they seem to find your 19 being particularly rich and minerally in characteristic. There seems to be a lot of diligence and a lot of recognition given to this minerality that seems to have come from 19 for the Blanc.
Yeah, because the Blanc, the white, the Beaune, you don't test. I am the only one to test. That's it.
Yes. Everybody's got their jars in front of them, so it would be great if you tasted it with us. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the label, Beaune. So Beaune, it's a small plot, completely on the south part of Beaune. Yeah, so it's near Beaune Clos des Mouches. You have Beaune on south. You have Pommard, then Beaune Clos des Mouches, then Beaune. But one thing is that Clos des Mouches is more facing east southeast, and Beaune it's coming back a little bit on northeast face. I don't know if I'm clear. Yeah, the hill, and so that's why you have more cold wind and less light. So it has already been planted more. You have more white than usual for Beaune in Beaune appellation. You have a lot of white in Beaune. I think because of this, and so you have good grapes with good minerality, and I think it's a good location for the white wine. Yeah.
They talk a lot about Clos des Mouches, that the plot overlooks Clos des Mouches. Could you maybe share why that's of particular importance to Burgundian drinkers?
Sorry, what? Sorry for?
There's reference to you being right next to Clos des Mouches. Clos des Mouches.
Yeah. Because Clos des Mouches, Beaune Clos des Mouches, it's well known, and it belongs. A lot of Clos des Mouches belongs to Drouin, but Clos des Mouches really is good location on the east southeast, and Aigrots is a bit more northeast. Yeah, that's what is different. Yeah.
So maybe you could walk the guys through just the phenolics of that white wine, what you're seeing from it at this stage.
Yeah, I think that at the moment you have a little bit of white fruit and a little bit of reduction taste. Yeah, on the nose. With of course the color is good. All the white wine in Burgundy, of course, is Chardonnay. I do the vinification in barrels and aging in the barrel. Yeah. So and you have 12 months of aging in barrel with a 25% new barrel. So
I'm thinking. Carry on.
Now, as the wine is on this wine, it's a little bit technique. But when I press, I did not add any sulfites. So it means you have a little bit of oxidation of the must, and the must is protected now against the oxidation, the wine after, because during the press I do a very long press, as people did it 20 or 30 years ago, yeah, and to take everything from the wine, and then after that the wine has a good protection, and perhaps at the beginning when he's young, not so much fruit than some others, but it will develop well in aging in the bottle. Yeah, it's one in its time. Yeah.
By removing the use of sulfides, am I correct in understanding that's going to promote more of that reductive element at an early stage of the wine?
Yeah. I did some trials with I did one press with sulfite, one press without sulfites. And the press, when you press with sulfites, you will have more of the fruit flavors at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when it's without sulfite, you can have a little bit more reduction at the beginning. But yeah, the wine is developed more, and then after it has more protection. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So it's better for the wine. Yeah.
I remember tasting the 18 of this last year, and the minerality was the big winner for me. It was really spectacular, and I think it was the 17s that we did live pre-COVID here in Singapore, and it's something that endures for me all the way through the various vintages. This nuance of minerality and textural crunch to the Aigrots.
Yeah, you have at the beginning of the mouth a good round and fruity and round rind, and at the end, and you have Blanc, and it's quite long, and with this minerality who comes and who gives some freshness to the wine. Yeah, and in fact, it's a little bit, with. I don't know if you have global warming in Singapore.
Yeah, we do.
with the last year, with the global warming, you have some location. Perhaps 20 or 30 years ago, we said, "Oh yes, not enough ripe, it's not so good." Yeah, and now this location, this appellation are better because they keep the freshness. Yeah. And it's not too ripe as some others. Yeah. And I think Aigrots is a good winner of the global warming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if it would be okay for you, Geoffrey, if we could look at the Bressandes, the Le Cinq, and Greves all one side by side. I'm particularly interested in doing that with the guys because it seems that these three wineries, so Bressandes being here, Le Cinq, the 100, and the Toussaint, kind of sort of in the same location, with Bressandes being slightly more elevated. But what I've taken from the critics is a tip towards the Greves as being the slightly higher rated one. But in terms of all the notes, we're seeing an enormous difference in characteristic and style between those three. Certainly looking at what the critics are having to say, when it comes to Bressandes, which is our jar number 2, it leans very much into a more floral kind of characteristic. And there's notes that seem to suggest that violets is a predominantly is a predominant theme, spiced plum, cherry, etc. That's playing off limestone plains and silt.
Bressandes, as you said, we have 1 hectare. We have 1 hectare on 20, so it's quite large vineyard, 30 years old, average of the vine, and yes, it's really in the middle of the slope, and with a lot of limestone, less in Marconnets, but a good amount of limestone, and the roots go deeper, and it always produces small grapes, and with good character and a lot of complexity. Yeah.
And the smaller the grape, the more intense the flavor as a rule. Yeah. I would guess it also lends a lot more tannic structure to the ultimate wine, having so much surface area of skin to fruit ratio.
But most of the time in the Bressandes, in fact, you will find the tannins, but quite soft and round tannins. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But you find the structure, but soft and round, yeah, and quite long. Yeah.
if you guys have a sniff of jar number 3, which is the Saint-Vignes, I'm sure my accent's getting better as I practice my 4 words of French. It seems this is the one that's been referenced by Berghound, for example, as having a slight reductive nose around about April this year, that he's super confident that it will wear off relatively quickly. And it'd be interesting to see how that's manifesting at this stage.
Yeah, Saint-Vignes, it's at the beginning of the slope, so you have more clay. So it's always produce wine with more feminine, easy to drink, young, with quite fruity, but sometimes it's more red fruit, and compared to Bressandes, was more black fruit. Yeah.
Yeah. There's these descriptions of Saint-Vignes showing a roundness of flavor, as opposed to the Bressandes, which is more structured, more architectural in style at this early stage.
Yeah. Saint-Vignes also, we have 1 hectare per 20. It means that we can produce a good quantity of wine in a big tank for Burgundy. Not because I said that because to compare also with Beaune Greves, because Beaune Greves it's a very small plot. Yeah. So in both Saint-Vignes and Bressandes, is in this vintage we have 20% of whole clusters. Yeah. Will help for the structure, but also give more fineness at the end. The wine is more fine and complex at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
Because 2019, we can mention it. 2019 is a really good vintage for Burgundy.
Yeah, it seems across the board. The opinion is, particularly in Beaune, that 18 to 19 has been a step up in quality. I think a little less rain than 18, if I remember it correctly.
Yes. Just two rains, one in middle of August, one beginning of September, who helps for the ripeness. And also quite a warm vintage, but with more minerality, a little bit more acidity than the 18. 18 is a little bit more heat vintage, it's warmer, 18.
Sorry, Lou, I don't have access to the chat room. I've only got one screen here. So if anybody has any questions, would you mind throwing them in? Because I can't see the chat from here. So if we go from now the structured, fuller-bodied Bressandes to the Saint-Vignes, which is more feminine and rounded and floral, moving into the Greves, it seems to be seen as a far more serious, big wine, offering more of that spice spectrum. Would that be a correct analogy?
Yeah, Greves, it's a good appellation, good location, just in the middle of Beaune area. And me, I am at the beginning of the slope here. I have a very small plot, so we are lucky to have some bottles. I think between 300 and 450 bottles per year.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, very small production. So, and me also, I'm lucky today because I test it. I don't often test it.
There's a lot of talk about, if we compare the Saint-Vignes number 3 to the Greves number 4, there's this notion of density. It's a bigger bodied wine. It's more muscular in form and character. And one of the other really interesting notes that I got from Alan Meadows was he describes in the Greves a sense of fine power. And I think he's referencing a delicate power as opposed to a smaller power. And that's quite analogous, certainly in the English language. But then thinking back to my older attempts at trying to understand Burgundy, there's this constant reference to fine Burgundy evidencing power without weight. It seems to be the thing that one aspires to as a producer always. And it seems that Berghound has actually picked it up here in the Greves.
Yeah. Greves, because it's a little bit more, it's a sandy soil, it's a clay and limestone with limestone, but also with sand, and we'll give this power, but also fine and at the end of the mouth, yeah. And it's a good, for me, it's in the middle of the run, it's a good in between the power and the fineness.
And the weight. Yeah.
Compromis.
Vraiment compromis en français.
Hey Rob, there's a question from David regarding the white.
Yep.
And whether the lack of sulfites changes the longevity or cellarability of the wine.
So regarding the sulfite?
Yeah.
Yes, Geoffrey. So the question is whether adding or detracting sulfides changes the cellaring potential of the wine.
Yeah. No. So first, you have the choice. You at the beginning you harvest, you press, and you choose under the press the juice. You add some sulfite or you don't add. Okay. Then you do the vinification with sulfite or without sulfite. But at the end of the vinification, you put some sulfite for aging and for cellaring the wine. Yeah, and you have to put some sulfite. But the wine that had no sulfite at the beginning, in fact, is more protected against the oxidation, because in fact, as he didn't add any sulfites during the press and just after the press, is protected against the oxidation. So you will cellar it for a longer time. The other one, you as always add protection of sulfite. So it means that perhaps one day the sulfite will decrease and then level on the bottle, and then you can have oxidation. Yeah.
That's interesting, because one of the problems about being in Singapore is that we tend to get mature white burgundies here, and the amount of white burgundy that has got pre-mox.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just, I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars I've thrown down the sink, and it's just so annoying. Rob, you're the same, right? I mean,
yeah.
The pre-mox problems in Singapore, because of the fact that we tend to buy higher end burgundies, but those 90s in particular, oh God, it was so annoying how much we threw away.
No, it's murder.
But if you want, there were at this time in 20 years ago, there were a trend. We have new press, pneumatic press. You can do soft pressing, gentle pressing, yeah. And you try and the enologists, I say, okay, you do gentle press. I don't know if you understand gentle pressing, soft press, and so you have only clear juice under the press, yeah, and you protect it. And in fact, now we come back to old way to do it. Old way is you put in the press and you make a normal press with a lot of turn, and you press high to take everything, and then the juice has more protection against oxidation. I don't know if I'm clear. Yeah.
Perfect.
Quick question, Rob.
Yeah.
The map's great, but I'm struggling to see where the various different vineyards are that all the wines we're tasting.
Oh, okay. The first, let's take you back a step. The Bressandes is over here. You see the arrow?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's jar number 2. Aigrots Blanc is the yellow spot over there.
Yep.
Le Saint Vin, here it's called the 100 Vines, because I'm using the English translation. And the Greves, oh, my accent's getting great. The Greves is this year.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So we're now going to go on to the Marconnets, which is, that's going to be the number 5. I'm not sure if it's from the top of Marconnet or the basin. I wasn't sure, Geoffroy.
So it's Marconnets.
Marconnets. I'm pretty sure I've got the right place, though.
That's all right.
Yeah, I didn't know you had Marconnets.
So it looks like there's actually 2 sites, both called Marconnet, or one top of Marconnet and the other one.
Yeah. Top of the Marconnets, it's not first free. It's a village wine. Yeah.
Right. Oh, got it. Like you mentioned that earlier. Yeah. So
we focus on Marconnet.
Number 5, we're actually looking at from over here.
Yeah. So Marconnet, we have, as you can see.
Yeah.
As you can see, we have a large. It's all the brown part that you can see, because it was quite young vine, and after you have the square part with very old vine. Yeah, young vine has been planted in 2013.
For us as followers of ratings, it's interesting to see that Berghound gives both the Marconnets and the Greves, number 4 and number 5, both 92 points. And I just want to pause there for a minute for some of the people who are on the call to highlight the importance of a rating of that significance from Berghound. He remains one of the few global critics who are still ruthlessly conservative with ratings. And we could bang on about ratings inflation all night, but happily, when it comes to Burgundy, and particularly when it comes to Berghound, I really appreciate the conservatism that he rates. And 92 points from Berghound is not an insignificant rating, particularly given the reasonableness in price. And one of the other things that is mentioned about Marconnets in many terms is that many people say it compares very favorably to many other Grand Cru Burgundies. So we're certainly now looking at some of the top end of what Geoffroy is producing with number 5.
Yeah, it's amazing because I found all the price lists from, I don't know if you know, Nicolas. Nicolas is a French wine seller.
Yeah. And
a long time ago, from the 1936 to 1980, they produce every year. They have every year a price list with painting, every year changing.
Yeah.
And on the list, I don't know, in the 40s, 50s, Marconnets was at the same price than Clos Vougeot or
really.
But no more now. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's just fine for us. Thanks, Geoffroy.
Another question, Rob, because I can't put it in chat. But apart from the location of the vineyards, okay, so the terroir, is there anything else different in the winemaking? I'm just trying to, are we just tasting the different terroir of the different vineyards, or is it something else other than that in the process?
So on the process here, you will find exactly the same for the wine, except the Beaune Greves. I will explain you. But all the others, it's done exactly in the same way. Yeah, so it's difficult for me. Indigenous natural yeast. Yeah. I don't add any yeast. Usually you have, so it means that you have 4 or 5 days of maceration of the grapes. We put the grapes in the vat in this for wine 20% of whole clusters, and so you have natural fermentation after 4 or 5 days of maceration, and then the fermentation lasts 15 to 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And at the end, we press, and it goes in French oak barrels. You have the same amount of new oak, and it's bottled the same day. So everything is the same.
That's fantastic.
Except the Beaune Greves. Beaune Greves is 100% destam, no stems in the Greve. Because Greve it's a small plot, and it goes in a smaller tank. So I must say that the fermentation goes faster because of that.
Okay, it's fantastic.
It's really cool, Brent, because so seldom we get a chance to see the same varietal, the same vintage, it's a relatively tiny spot, but enormous differences in character.
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
Very cool. Yeah,
it's all on this map on my screen.
and what is amazing is that every year you will find the same. Each wine will have the same characteristic. Yeah. You will find the same, it doesn't change from one vintage to the other. It's always the same type.
Consistent,
Geoffroy, we have a question from Colin. If you add sulfur after the pressing, can you still do an indigenous yeast fermentation?
Yes. Yeah, we can. Yeah, because the sulfur that you add just after the press, it's just to protect against oxidation, and also it can help to select the good yeast who are already in the juice. Yeah. So you can. Of course, if you add a lot of the problem is that if you add a lot of sulfites, it will kill all the yeast. That's true.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So, Jeffrey, they talk about your Marconnet vintage vineyard being part of Beaune and part of Savigny. So is Savigny defined by the other side of the highway?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's easy.
Yeah.
So when next I go to Bordeaux and I inevitably get lost, I'll be able to differentiate the two. If you were to try to describe the differences between Savigny and Beaune in broad strokes for Marconnets, what are the two elements that are together contributing to a final product?
Yeah, I think that Beaune is produce always very fine and delicate wine, more the fruit. Yeah, and Savigny is a little bit wine coming from the earth and perhaps a little more rustic than the Beaune. Beaune has more elegant, yeah, more delicate wine. Yeah.
Yes.
And Savigny, you will find also a lot of style of wine because it's on the other map. If you look at Savigny, yeah, here.
Okay. So this is Vignes. So I would imagine it's going to be somewhere here, the end of.
Yeah, Savigny is on the left here.
Yeah,
we don't see it.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's the same for Pernod. You have a lot of valley. Savigny. In Savigny, you will find a part of it is looking north, a part of it looking south, a part of it looking southeast. So you will find a lot of style of wine and regarding where you are compared to Beaune, where everybody is on the same almost same facing.
There's an MW in London who mentions that your plots in Savigny, I would imagine he's referencing the Vignes vineyard, are some of the finest in the whole region. He writes very glowingly about Vignes. We don't have it tonight because I really wanted to just look at Beaune in its own context, but that's for another time, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's because it's just in the middle of the hill, just facing southeast. You see, north, no, not east, not south, but southeast. Just when it changes. Yeah. And I have a good. There is a good amount of limestone in the middle of the spot.
So in contrasting, sorry, you were saying something?
I would say to finish on Marconnet. Yeah, Marconnet produce always good wine, rich, more on the black fruit, with a lot of mineral that you can keep for a long time. Yeah.
In our final wine, the Le Teurons is from, and I would imagine, judging by the ratings, is something that's going to show much bigger. And much in a way more muscular way. 93 points from Berghound. The vast majority of it got lifted while we were talking online. So there's only 6 bottles of this left now. I sound like one of those shopping channel ladies who's constantly trying to sell products as the one.
It's starting to look like one too.
But yeah. Meadows references this as being the biggest and fullest body Pinot that you produce, a Burgundy that you produce, and one of his references is discreetly spicy, which is, I think, a really delightful way to describe the flavor construct.
Yeah, because Teurons, I have 1 hectare just in. Teurons appellation is quite large. Me, I am on the top of the appellation, so I am well located. And really on the top of this plot, there is a lot of limestone. It's even difficult to plant some sticks there. And so it produces, again, very concentrated grapes and with good ripeness and with good aging potential. Yeah.
There's references to both red and dark fruit interplay in this one, as opposed to being more distinctly about red fruits for the Bressandes, for example.
Yeah. And it's always at the end. It's always quite rich and long at the end of the mouth. Yeah.
And the other really amazing reference that Berghound gives to this is, quote, terrific, unquote. And I, in everything that I've read, I've never ever read him say something quite as powerful as that. Normally he's incredibly expressive in his adjectives, but for him to call the Teurons terrific is an extremely positive, complimentary thing to say about the wine.
Also, it's a very old vine. It's a 56 years old vine, so that's help for the concentration and for the complexity.
Let me just get rid of the stop share so we can look at you better. There we go. Colin, question about directionals. They were when I was reading about this, they all seem to be different. Is that right, Jeffrey?
Sorry.
The location, looking towards the sun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All of them are different. It's between 300 meters and 400 meters. Yeah.
Right. Colin's point about the Bressandes and Marconnets being the ripest, do they have the same aspect towards the sun, or are they different?
I say no, Bressandes regarding the sun.
No, regarding the
no, yeah, it's a Marconnets. It's more a little bit higher, yeah,
right,
than the Bressandes, and Marconnets. It's a cooler area. It means that the grapes, the vine grows always later than Bressandes.
But is it northeast?
Yes, it's northeast.
Northeast, okay.
It's east. No, both are east. And Bressandes is a little bit more south, yeah. Perhaps.
Yeah, we can actually see from that zoom image that you have of the vineyard. They seem to be very clearly in different directions. It's certainly not. They seem to definitely be constructed with different ideas in mind in terms of location. Lou's talking about the Bressandes showing the most perfume of the lineup. That certainly is the references I'm getting from the critics in a rather a strong way about that perfume thing with the high notes of violets.
It's very obvious. The violets and the purple notes coming through in Bressandes is very, very obvious. Whereas the Sanvin, I found the Sanvin not as giving, but but more depth in the middle palate. This Teuron though is just blowing me away.
Yeah, it's amazing,
impressive. But I got to say the whole lineup. Yeah.
Just one thing regarding the cork. All the cork are tested. It's natural cork, of course, coming from Portugal, but they are all tested one by one against the TCA. Yeah.
Ah, what, individually tested?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. That's incredible.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Oh, it's not me.
It's got to be a full-time job. Jeez.
It's it's difficult in English, but they spray some not water, but and then after that they keep the
stuff, the water that comes out.
La vapeur. Yeah, you understand?
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they analyze it. And if it's below the level, it's okay. And it's
I've never heard of that, because up to now, for me, using cork is Russian roulette. It's just, you own a bottle of wine for 10 years, and I can only akin it to going on a date that lasts 10 years and finally getting home with the person, and the sex is lousy. The whole experience is a total disaster. So I'm terrified of cork and what it does in the long run.
So to buy two bottles.
To come back to the wine, what my philosophy, what I really try to do is really to show that we talked now, what we just talked. It's to show the expression of each terroir, of each location. And I think that working organically and with low yields, with all vines, it helps. And doing the vinification on the same way, it helps to show this terroir and really to show the difference between each one. And it's very interesting.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been amazing to get this insight and for your involvement with us. I'm sure we have a long and fruitful relationship together ahead, especially if we can do more of these kind of things. Dave's got a question. Oh, Lou's got a question.
I've always got a question.
Lou has this very famous question that he asks at the end of every tasting. So
Yeah.
we'll hand over to Lou.
Thank you. So, Geoffrey,
Yeah.
obviously, you know, in terms of making Burgundy, you're on top of your game, which is fantastic. So, what do you drink when you don't drink your own wine?
Oh, I drink wine from. I try to drink wine from all over the world. Yeah, not only Burgundy.
Oh, come on, stop being an ambassador.
And
What,
the Spanish
what do-
wine from